All right, ladies and gentlemen, MrSotko here. Welcome back to the channel. Got a whole bunch of good crypto news stuff for you. But before we get into the main topic, I just want to say that there's a new Coinbase Earn program. In case you guys missed it, it's numeraire and it's free cryptocurrency. There's no shill link this time. You just got to go on there and do it. Hey, free stuff. But Grayscale's Bitcoin premium flips negative as BTC stays below 50,000. So my previous video, I was talking about how Grayscale's premium was just absolutely tanking, which is a fairly bad sign for the market, as Grayscale has been pushing the market, of course, along with Tesla buying 1.5 billion. MicroStrategy has like 4 or some billion Bitcoin now. But Grayscale's premium, essentially, once people start buying in, the premium raises, and that raises the price of Bitcoin as well, raises awareness of Bitcoin as well. And then when the premium starts to shrink just before an unlocking period, because these Grayscale premiums essentially buy in for 6 months, they're locked for 6 months. By the time that unlocking period occurs, the premium is very low and Bitcoin is usually in a dip. And then after that unlocking period, it typically goes back up, like after February 3rd, the last unlocking period. So now it's actually negative, so the discount is literally below the price of Bitcoin. So the gap between the GBTC share price and the implied price of the underlying Bitcoin has collapsed to a 4% discount from a 35% premium late last year. So the largest public Bitcoin trust is facing an unusual situation. Its shares are dropping faster than the underlying cryptocurrency that you actually buy. Historically, the GBTC trades at a premium to Bitcoin, but that premium turned into a discount this week, with GBTC closing at a price nearly 4% lower than the market value of the underlying asset on Thursday. So you might as well just go out and actually buy Bitcoin in that case. In mid-December, GBTC shares traded at more than a 35% premium, according to data from YCharts. A reminder that price action for GBTC doesn't perfectly match Bitcoin's own price action by any means. However, we've seen pretty clearly that at the end of December, it was like the 26th or the 29th, we started to see the price of Bitcoin start to fall. January had no unlocking periods for the price for GBTC. And then the price kept falling and was trading sort of sideways, falling a little bit in January, and then February 3rd, the unlocking period, and it goes back up. Now we're sort of in the midst of an unfortunate stock market depression, kind of, or at least we're heading that way, as bond yields from the Federal Reserve are way up, which causes people to take their stocks, sell them, and then put them into the basically guaranteed Federal Reserve yields for their bonds. So, but we'll have to see how that works out, because for a while, for just a brief period, the yields of the bonds of the Federal Reserve were very, very high, and now people probably were too late to that, and they might just go right back to stocks. So we'll have to see with that raising, and it might raise the crypto market back up. So, but Grayscale is owned by Digital Currency Group. Grayscale's Bitcoin Trust isn't the only one trading at a discount. However, 3iQ's Canadian Bitcoin fund, QBTC, oh man, these are starting to get really innovative. GBTC and QBTC, who would have thought? Although a smaller fund than Grayscale, was also trading at roughly a 4% discount to the underlying asset. So not looking so good for Grayscale at the moment, which was sort of our savior of 2020, just absolutely piling in the money into Bitcoin and various other assets, and now sort of going back down the other way. But who knows? Market will turn around as it always does. Likely summer. It could turn around before that, but summer is typically pretty good for cryptocurrency. There's usually at least one big pump in the summer, and March is typically not a very good month for crypto either, but we've been wrong on the past, in the past on that as well. So why is Cardano pumping while other cryptos are slumping? So ADA, the native currency of Cardano blockchain, surged 13% in the past week, 269% in the last month, and 2,633% since last year. With all the upward momentum, it's managed to become the third largest crypto by market capitalization. Today, it kept going all the way up to $1.28, which now it's even further than that. So apart from Dogecoin, the price of which was helped upward by Elon Musk tweets, Cardano is the best performing crypto asset in the top 20 this year, according to data from Nomics. Impressively, it's performed well despite not being listed on Coinbase, a major gateway for Main Street U.S. investors. So there's two likely culprits. First, it's hard forking at the beginning of March, and that's a good thing. After the merry hard fork, Cardano will become a decentralized multi-asset smart contract platform. So basically, smart contracts, DeFi, NFTs can be on ADA. So it's basically will finally have a use case in March, and likely this price rise that we see from Cardano is due to the fact that in March there's actually finally going to be a use case for this. Because Cardano, for many years, since it came out, I think it was 2017, basically had no working product. Sure, you could send the crypto across the blockchain. They had a roadmap, but it had absolutely no working product. There were no smart contracts. There was no DeFi. There was nothing really on it. So it might not seem like a huge deal given that Ethereum, the blockchain Cardano is often compared to, has all those things. However, the Ethereum gas price lately has gotten absolutely out of control. It's well over $100. It's upwards of a few $100s to use MetaMask in terms of like Uniswap and things like that. It is absolutely outrageous right now. It's simply, period. It simply prices almost anybody out of the market unless you're a whale. If you want to go on and buy some new ICO or some new token or something like that on the DeFi markets, you better go in there with something like $10,000 because basically it's a few $100s just to make the first initial purchase. And then if you wanted to later sell that, or maybe in a few days it goes up in price and you say, okay, well, I'll just take my profits. It's 2-3x, something like that. And then you go to sell it. Well, sure, you did make money, but then it's another few $100s to sell it. So there goes a huge percent of the potential profit. So if you're trading something like a few $100s, it's just poof into fees. So it's essentially pricing out the majority of people in the world out of the market entirely from DeFi. It's getting pretty out of control for sure. So, yet blockchain projects get upgrades and integration and new features all the time, and there's no solid evidence that individual investors are pricing that into their decision while ignoring developments on other networks. So, although Cardano is getting ready to introduce NFTs at a time when they're getting mainstream media attention, it is good timing. A second factor that would be driving the price up this week news is that FD7, the Dubai investment firm, which I actually mentioned yesterday in my last video, they sold $750 million in Bitcoin so that they could buy Cardano and Polkadot. The communications director at investment research firm Quantum Economics told Decrypt, since Cardano has been trading close to $1 and the platform has a lot of well thought out developers, it may be the smartest play FD7 can make for bigger returns. And, maybe it is possible. And I kind of agree with that a little bit. Certainly, there is a lot of hype right now. And I think the idea is that Cardano was like 9 cents, 10 cents, 12 cents for so long and finally reaches $1. The FOMO starts to get pretty crazy. I mean, really the memes that are out there that shows the Futurama guy basically like screaming to, take my money when Bitcoin is at $50,000. But then when it dips down to $30,000 or something like that, it's just like, no, don't take my money. And it just doesn't make sense because you should be buying the dip. You shouldn't be buying it at $50,000. You should have bought it at $30,000, just like you should have bought, Cardano at 9 cents and not at $1. But because it's now $1, everybody sees it. Everybody sees that it has moved up the market cap, and everybody sees that it's the only coin in green, so they FOMO into it. The problem with doing that is that half the time you see a coin pumping and you're like, wow, I want to get in on that. By the time you send your coin across the blockchain so that you can, switch it out, maybe Bitcoin to ADA or USD or Tether or something like that, it goes up a couple cents and then starts dumping on you. Now, is Cardano going to dump on you if you buy it? I don't know. Of course, nobody can really say for sure, but it could indeed be a good investment for returns, considering the fact that Bitcoin at the moment, let's just see the exact price, $44,000, but let's just call it $50,000 for ease here. And if Bitcoin goes to $500,000, well, that's 10x. But Cardano from $1 to 10x does not seem as hard. It doesn't seem like that's as much money you need to pump into it to 10x it. And then you could get your better returns out of that, because I don't think Bitcoin is going to be $500,000 anytime soon. If I had to make a guess, I would guess that Cardano would be $10 before Bitcoin is $500,000. And that's just a guess, not financial advice. It's just a guess that it would be easier to get to that than to $500,000. But do I believe that Bitcoin will be $500,000 at some day? Absolutely. I just don't think it's going to be a while. I mean, we've got the 2024 halvening, the 2028 halvening, and after the 2032 halvening, we will have less than 1 Bitcoin per block reward. So at that point, the price of Bitcoin is going to have to be substantial. It will have to be substantially higher than it is now, because a lot of people, even the big warehouses, a lot of the time will pool mine. And if you're pool mining and you get a fraction of less than 1 Bitcoin, so you're essentially getting a fraction of Bitcoin, in order to pay the cost of running all of those ASICs, and who knows what's going to be happening, 10 years from now, or more in 2032. But either way, I think we can all agree the price of Bitcoin would have to be substantial to continue running your operation. So either Bitcoin has to be zero, or it has to be $1 million. That sort of thing. I really think it comes down to that, and that's an oversimplification. But if Bitcoin does not go to $1 million, it has to go to essentially a much lower price than it is now. So it's a strange world, crypto, strange world. But Polkadot, the other recipient of the FTC investments, is down 13% for the week. So it's unlikely that the bullish Cardano market is entirely attributable to that either. Cardano founder Charles Hoskinson, who also co-founded Ethereum, doesn't know what's behind the market momentum, so he doesn't know either. Although I would suspect it's because there's finally going to be some kind of use case for Cardano. And it's been a long time. It came out in 2017. It's been 4 years. It took 4 years, basically, roundabout, for them to have any sort of use case. So he says, if I knew why the prices behave the way they do, then I'd be a trader, not a builder, he told Decrypt. I'm focused on the growth of Cardano ecosystem and the realization of our industry's use and utility in the developing world. So it's starting to have a really great use case indeed. And you could argue that Cardano didn't really have a use case other than sending on the blockchain. You could say that about a lot of things. I mean, you could say that about Litecoin. You could say that about Bitcoin Cash. You could say that about Bitcoin. You could say that about pretty much all of the cryptocurrencies out there that don't have any kind of smart contracts or DeFi or anything like that on them. So fair enough. I'll give it that one. Moving on here, economists warn of a dystopia if Bitcoin aristocrats become reality. So this is kind of an interesting article, and it makes a lot of sense. Because the idea is that if Bitcoin really went to $1 million or $2 million or $10 million per Bitcoin, in fact, Hal Finney back, I think in 2010, might have even been 2009, thoroughly believed that Bitcoin would one day be $10 million, which would give each individual Satoshi 10 cents in value. And he believed that it would be $10 million. And this is at a time when Bitcoin was something like a few cents, maybe a fraction of a cent. And so to think that it's going to be $10 million is even crazier than saying Bitcoin is going to be $10 million today. Somebody, like, if I tell you, hey, Bitcoin is going to be $10 million one day, you're like, it's a kind of a stretch, right? But imagine rolling back in time when there was barely even any Bitcoin exchanges. In fact, the Bitcoin exchange didn't come out till I think halfway through 2010. And to say that Bitcoin is going to be $10 million. Now, that's pretty crazy. But, I mean, we kind of are going that way for sure. And if Bitcoin is $10 million, it's basically going to suck up all of the money on planet Earth. It's going to have to suck up all of the money on planet Earth, basically, to be $10 million, or at least the vast majority of it. And at that point, all of the Bitcoin holders that have held for over time, they're going to be giga rich, whereas everybody else is going to be suffering in a world of inflation. So the idea of Bitcoin actually mooning creates somewhat of a dystopia for anybody who didn't actually buy Bitcoin, which is a weird thing to think about. but true. So not everyone is excited about hyper-Bitcoinization. According to a popular copy-paste meme, Bitcoin holders, hodlers, of course, I'm always saying it wrong, are set to become a neo-aristocracy, aristocracy, as Bitcoin becomes the dominant world currency. It says only BTC holders will be permitted to the upper echelons of society. No coiners will be shunned socially and financially. At best, forced to become servants to the new upper class. At worst, executed for crimes against the Bitcoin empire. So the meme is part of a larger vision for Bitcoin's future, a semi-serious but mostly tongue-in-cheek narrative that can be lumped under the Bitcoin Citadel's umbrella. A vision of the future in which Bitcoin becomes so valuable that hodlers become lords, quite literally, defending their coins and castles. Originating from a Reddit post written by someone claiming to be a time traveler. They called for 1 million price target in 2021. If you're curious, back it was a few years ago. The Citadel meme has taken a life of its own. On the think tank Center for Economic Policy and Research's website, academic John Danielson of the London School of Economics wrote an article yesterday in which he envisions a future where Bitcoin aristocrats will fuel social division and populism through extreme wealth inequality. It says, to begin with, the current owners of Bitcoin will become the wealthiest people in the world, rivaling the kings and emperors that ruled over empires in centuries past. They will literally own all the money. They could buy anything they want. There aren't that many of them compared to the multitudes that own assets today via all the pension funds and mutual funds and the rest. It is a tiny group of people. And this reminds me of my own little private Bitcoin theory. And my little theory, I think the most likely candidate of Satoshi Nakamoto was Hal Finney. And I know people are going to be like, oh no, it was this guy, it was that guy. But hear me out here. So Hal Finney creates Bitcoin. He ends up coming down with ALS. He also uses Satoshi Nakamoto and his own personality to talk at the same time. Satoshi Nakamoto was a bit more humble when it comes to Bitcoin, whereas Hal Finney was very outspoken on it, very much less pragmatic than Satoshi. Hal Finney talked about how Bitcoin would be $10 million, how he loved it, how the world is how it's going to soak up all the money, how it's going to explode one day. He was the biggest supporter of Bitcoin if he wasn't Satoshi. Then he comes down with ALS, and mysteriously Satoshi disappears around that same time. He pays for a lot of his medical bills with Bitcoin. So he was a hodler of Bitcoin in a time where people were just throwing out hard drives that held Bitcoin. People were deleting their wallets that held Bitcoin. They just thought of them as useless. Oh, I tried that a few months ago and I mined, I think, 100 coins, and then my computer just got hot and I didn't feel like running it and I turned it off, right? Because it had no value. People didn't realize one day it's going to be $50,000, $60,000, $100,000, right? Of course. So people were throwing it away. Yet Hal Finney, the one person, hodls Bitcoin over a few year period, mines a whole bunch of it, is able to pay off medical bills with it when its price was pretty low at the time. And then he freezes his body. Hal Finney is cryogenically frozen in Scottsdale, Arizona. It wasn't actually too far from where I used to live in Arizona when I was making crypto videos in Arizona. And one day he will wake up 100 years from now when they can pump blood back into his body, get his heart going, have some genetic altering material that takes the ALS away. He recovers, has some physical therapy, and wakes up to the idea that he owns 1 million Bitcoin. And imagine owning 1 million Bitcoin when it's $1 million. If you had $1 million, if you had 1 million Bitcoin and Bitcoin was worth $1 million, it would be $10 trillion if my math is correct, which is probably not, but it'd be $10 trillion. That is like 1,000 times more rich, maybe more, maybe 10,000 times as rich, math, right, than Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and Jeff Bezos, right? You would have so much money, you would be lethally rich. You would be harassed by the world for interviews, for money. People would be breaking their legs on purpose on your property. You would be harassed till the world's end. You would have $10 trillion. You would have more money than basically every country on the planet. Indeed, this just reminds me of my own little silly theory in my head that in the future, Bitcoin holders or maybe grandchildren of Bitcoin holders as it's passed down generationally will be absolutely, utterly giga rich because the price will be so high that there will be no billionaires. There will be the world's first trillionaire, and the world's first trillionaire. Mark my words on this one. Clip it. Mark my words on this one. The world's first trillionaire will be a Bitcoin holder. Moving on here, Bill Gates issues serious Bitcoin warning as Tesla billionaire Elon Musk stokes Bitcoin price mania. So billionaire from Microsoft founder turned global philanthropist, which he had to do to turn into a global philanthropist because everybody hated him and they were suing him and stuff. So he had to, but in reality, Bill Gates is actually kind of a douche. To Tesla chief Elon Musk on weighing in on the Bitcoin that he purchased. After Musk sent the Bitcoin price sharply higher with pro-Bitcoin tweets, Tesla added $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin to its balance sheet, pushing Bitcoin still even higher. Excuse me. Now, with top Federal Reserve officials expressing their surprise at Bitcoin's latest bull run, Bill Gates has warned people with less money than Musk should probably watch out. Okay, so Musk is officially the second richest person in the world. For a while there, he was the first, but then I think Tesla stock went down and Bitcoin went down because they bought Bitcoin, and now he's technically second, but it's by like $3 billion. But anybody that has less money than Bill Gates, that's literally everybody on the planet except for Jeff Bezos. And then sometimes it is literally everybody else on the planet. So Bill Gates is such a douche. So Elon has tons of money and he's very sophisticated. I'm not sophisticated because I don't have a lot of money. So, Bill Gates, you're such a douche. So I don't worry that his Bitcoin will sort of randomly go up or down, Gates told Bloomberg in an interview. I do. Every single person that holds Bitcoin worries if his Bitcoin and everybody else's Bitcoin goes up or down. Bill Gates is such a douche. I do think people get bought into these manias. You mean the mania that's been going on for 12 years now? Literally 12 years. It's just going up in price and creating a longer and more secure blockchain. It's just not a mania at this point. You could maybe argue that Bitcoin was a mania maybe 2 years after Bitcoin was created. It's just a mania. It's just a fad, right? It's going to go to zero. Okay, fair enough, right? 12 years in, is it really a mania anymore? Can we just stop with this mania thing? It's just not. It's a real actual blockchain. A lot of work actually goes into it. Proof of work, electricity. Many people are using it. Many companies are buying it. It's going up in price. It has exact fundamentals. It's an open source software, so you can literally read it. Hundreds of thousands of people across the world have literally read the software. There's nothing broken about it, except for that one time when like 13 billion Bitcoin were created out of thin air, but that was patched. So hey, that's fine. We won't miss on that one though. But my general thought would be that if you have less money than Elon, you should probably watch out. So everybody. So basically, Bill Gates doesn't want you to invest in Bitcoin, which is fun. Later, speaking on the invite-only app Clubhouse, Gates said he has not personally invested in Bitcoin because you don't need to because you have $100 billion, telling host Andrew Sorkin that he preferred to put his cash into companies that make products and that he did not choose his investments based on whether they would appreciate in value. You're such an NWO globalist. I mean, he has billions of dollars, and he, is a computer. I mean, he's a computer like a college dropout. So basically, we have this college dropout who has now become a billionaire philanthropist and is some kind of medical expert that they keep putting on TV. And now he's telling everybody not to buy Bitcoin, which is going to make you giga rich in the future. Literally, here's the investment strategy of Bitcoin. Do you want to be rich in the future? Here it is, right? Buy Bitcoin and DCA invest into it. What is DCA? That means you just invest a little bit every week. You invest the same amount every paycheck that you get. Can you afford $20? Can you afford $100? Can you afford $50? It doesn't matter, right? Just think of what you can afford, even if it's $20, and you put $20 in every paycheck. If Bitcoin goes up in price, you put in $20. If Bitcoin goes down in price, you put in $20. You put in the same amount every single 2 weeks till past the year 2032. Trust me, you're going to want to hold it till past 2032 when the Bitcoin halving goes below, far below 1 Bitcoin. And then the price is going to be $1 million by 2032 or after 2032. That's a freebie. So that's all I have for you guys. Checking out CoinMarketCap real quick. 44,498 Bitcoin. We are in a bit of slump right now, which is super ironic, which I just said it would be $1 million in 2032. But welcome to crypto. This happens all the time, and this just means you get to buy more. So what this means too is if you're DCA investing and you're putting that $100 every 2 weeks or something into Bitcoin, you're going to get a little bit more Bitcoin. When Bitcoin goes back up to 60,000, you're going to get a little less of Bitcoin, and that's okay. Just keep buying it and don't touch it. Just leave it there. Invest what you can't. Invest what you can afford to lose. Assume that it's gone, right? So don't invest too much that you need to go, oh man, I need to fix my car now. I need to get out all that Bitcoin. Don't do that. Just invest a little bit so you'll never need to do that. Well, that's all I have for you guys. 1.3 trillion market cap. We're going down a little bit, but we've got a little bit of a bearish stock market, a little bit of a bearish crypto market. Not too big of a deal, but make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, share the video. That also helps me out a lot. My social media in the description below. Give me a follow on those if you happen to be on those and you have the time to do so, but that's all I have for you. And as usual, I'll see you guys next time.